And, okay, we got Scott Sands joining us now. Hey, Scott.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem.
It's great to be back on with you.
Good to have you. Absolutely. So, right now, we got some sound here we want to play?
Donald Trump is reviving our conviction in America. We need a leader here back home who revives our conviction in Ohio. Donald Trump has a vision for America. We need a leader here at home who has a vision for Ohio. And that is why last night I declared my candidacy to become the next governor of a great state at the heart of the greatest nation known to mankind. The state where I was born and raised. The state where I'm raising my two sons today, a state whose best days are still ahead. I am proud to announce again my candidacy to be the next governor of the great state of Ohio. Thank you.
Vivek Ramaswamy.
So that was, last night in Toledo.
Yeah.
Vivek Ramaswamy, yeah.
You got everybody fired up. So, Scott, just share a little anecdotal background. I got interested in following Vivek, honestly, back in the 2019 or so time frame. He, as you know, very successful entrepreneurial career and became a guest rather frequently in the business media. In particular, Fox Business would have him on quite a bit. I always enjoyed his interview and was always so impressed. And then George Floyd situation happened in June 2020. And subsequent to that, as you know, virtually every major corporation in America spun up these DEI departments and mandatory CRT training and all sorts of changes in policy to give preferential treatment. You remember all that. Still going on.
Absolutely.
To some extent. But a lot of it's been rolled back. He wrote a book called Woke Inc. I got it. I read it. And it was spot on. And it exposed all of that nonsense in the corporate community. And after that, I said to myself, and I started telling my friends around here, watch this guy. He's probably going to be a candidate for president. And, of course, you know the reaction. Who? How do you say his name? And here we are. I think he'd be a fabulous governor for the great state of Ohio. He's so articulate, does such a great job of just distilling down what are just common sense issues into common sense talk and messaging, just as he did right there. What do you think?
I certainly agree. He's a rising star in the conservative movement. I think he's got, or had anyway, some name recognition issues, but he is an amazing speaker, very articulate. I watched his first announcement on Monday night and then attended the rally last night in Toledo. And he has delivered in the last 2 days 4 hour-long, close to 90-minute speeches without notes, without a teleprompter. And the two speeches that I watched were two completely separate events, two completely separate speeches. And he certainly has a way of articulating the conservative message today. And I think that he's got a lot of momentum right now in the state of Ohio. Apologies, I apparently forgot to turn my computer sounds off, so a little beeping in the background. So I think the momentum he's got right now, especially with the endorsements Monday night of Elon Musk and Donald Trump, which he spoke about last night, if you have that clip.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the endorsement of President Trump last night. Came in right after we launched the campaign, and we are taking the country and this state to the next level. How about that? America's back. And it feels fantastic, all right? But we still have our work cut out ahead of us. In fact, we're just getting started. This is the celebration of the beginning. It's just the very end of the beginning. That's what this is.
That's awesome. And that's the kind of messaging that he's really good at crafting, Scott, that resonates with people. It really does. And I applaud him.
He was able to hit on a number of hot topic issues last night, from DEI to bringing innovation and technology to the state of Ohio. And this race has changed dramatically. Attorney General, who has been a terrific AG for the state of Ohio, Dave Yost, announced his candidacy before Vivek while Vivek was still with Doge. and was presumed to be the front runner in the gubernatorial race in Ohio since John Husted was named to replace J.D. Vance in the U.S. Senate. All the speculation had been Husted wanted to be governor, which is why he stepped out of the gubernatorial race 6 years ago, to serve as LG for Mike DeWine. And Yost kind of filled that vacuum, and now with Vivek in the race, he is blowing Dave Yost out of the water in the Republican primary. The interesting thing about this, though, Gerard, is that in the latest polling that I saw this morning, the only Democrat candidate in the race so far, Dr. Amy Acton, now leads Vivek by just over 1 percentage point in the state. And she's an interesting candidate because she was the health director for Republican Governor Mike DeWine during the pandemic, responsible for shutting down so many small businesses in the state, and has no political experience whatsoever. I think these numbers are obviously going to change. We're 2 years out from the election, and I'm sure there will be another Democrat candidate to step in. Speculation about former Senator Sherrod Brown, perhaps former Congressman Tim Ryan, some other names that may fill the vacuum as well. But for her to have an early lead over Vivek is quite interesting.
Yeah, it is. Contrast Vivek to Governor DeWine. I'm not a big fan of the governors.
So I like Mike personally. He's become a friend over the years. He is, in my opinion, Ohio's grandfather. I think he is a very compassionate man, cares about the people of Ohio, has been a good steward for the state, I believe. I've certainly not agreed with him on everything, and many people in the state and probably across the country would consider him to be in the Rhino vein of the Republican Party. But I think he's been overall a good governor, but he is certainly not the conservative with a backbone that I think our state needs to enact change in the state. And again, the political intrigue, Governor DeWine, who served as Attorney General, he's been in Congress. He's a smart cookie when it comes to being a political operative. And recently, to replace John Husted, he named Jim Tressel as lieutenant governor. And of course, everybody in the state and maybe down in SEC country knows Tressel is the former coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes. He led Youngstown State University as president, and not a politician either. I think that appointment was made because DeWine wants to protect his legacy and not have everything that he's done erased by Vivek Ramaswamy. And he tried to find somebody with the name recognition and the popularity in the state of Ohio who could possibly beat Vivek if Tressel decides to enter the gubernatorial primary himself.
Yeah, I was a little stunned at that appointment, frankly. Scott, we're up against a break right here. We're going to get you after the break to continue this discussion. We're enjoying it. I know we got some more sound we want to play. Especially want to talk about a statement that was included in Vivek's speech. I think all of them is his focus on education freedom and school choice. He's a big proponent of that. That's something we're struggling to get past here in the great state of Mississippi. I think you got some sound for us on that. We're coming right back with Scott Sands, national radio host. Stay with us. Studio, our guest is Scott Sands, national radio host. So, Scott, before we went to break, we were talking about this issue of school choice, education freedom, something that many states have adopted across the country, nearby Ohio there, universal school choice. By Governor Kim Reynolds. She was a big proponent of that. Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders in Arkansas made it a priority right after she was elected, got universal choice enacted. They're in the final 3 phases of that right now, and the president fully supports it, as does his Secretary of Education. But we have trouble getting that through in Mississippi. Now, you have some sound for us, I believe. You want to introduce that?
Sure, and I realize HB 1433 is under consideration in Mississippi right now, and it only makes sense for the state to move in that direction. You're surrounded with Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, Tennessee, all have school choice programs. I think I'm filling in for you on Friday, actually, and hope to dive into the issue a little bit more. But we had a chance to ask Vivek. He spent a lot of time during his rally last night talking about improving the education system in Ohio with everything from minor steps like banning cell phones from schools and reenacting the president's physical fitness program to school choice options. And I asked him about that after the rally last night.
What we have to do is give every parent the opportunity to seek the best possible education for their kids, wherever that may be. public school, charter school, or homeschooling. I'm also focused on making sure that our public schools are actually equipped to compete with the best of the alternatives.
Meaning?
Meaning merit-based pay. Pay public school teachers and principals and administrators and superintendents according to the results they deliver.
Yeah.
It only makes sense. Our tax money funds education, so why shouldn't we as parents decide where that money is best used?
Totally agree. Now, just to kind of catch you up there, Senate Bill 1433 unfortunately died on the calendar. And that was legislation introduced by Representative Rob Robertson, the Education Committee chairman in the House, that would have allowed a public-to-public option as well as a public-to-private. But unfortunately, we couldn't even get that through our House. So what we're left with is a bill that was introduced by Representative Jansen. Oh, in fact, he's coming on the show at 11:05 today. That is House Bill 1435, which would allow essentially unrestricted open enrollment, public-to-public transfer. And then we have another one that's still alive, came out of the House, 1432, which would expand the districts in which charter schools could locate in the state of Mississippi. Currently, that's limited to only D and F districts. And I've said on this show, Scott, that I'm a little skeptical of the district grading system in our state. We only have 3 D and F districts in our state. Now, I know we made a lot of progress from an education perspective, and the governor is rightfully touted that. I'm not sure I'm buying that we only have 3 D and F districts, and that's the only place a charter school can go now.
And I was educated at a high school in Mississippi, and it was a Catholic high school, so I think I got a pretty good education, but I certainly can relate.
Yeah, I was too. I went to high school at St. Joseph here locally in central Mississippi, parochial education as well. But we kind of fashion ourselves as a conservative state. Education choice is a very conservative idea, but yet we struggle. We've been working on this for years, and we have a little bit of school choice. Children with dyslexia, special needs have got some options, though we don't fully fund that. It has to be separately funded the way our system works. So we have a waiting list. So we can't get that cleared up, and we can't locate charter schools. We have 10. We thought we'd have 75 or 80 by now. We have 10, and we're only limited to 3 districts. There's a lot of pushback on it. Scott, you got any thoughts or ideas about that?
I wish I had ideas. I wish I had solutions, but I think that beginning to look at what the Department of Education does on a national level is a good start, and figuring out how some of that money may be better spent. As Vivek said last night, he's not looking to pick fights with school districts or teachers' unions. He wants to find the solutions, and I think we could do that on a state-by-state level because it's not a one-size-fits-all solution for states.
How about the idea of merit pay, bonus pay for good education outcomes or good performance in the classroom? Man, that's what we do in the private sector. Why can't we do that in government?
Right. I think that's a great concept. I don't know how it works in practice. Are you looking at students' test scores to make sure that there are improvements? Are you looking at an overall class that a teacher has or an overall school performance? And will that mean that the better teachers wind up migrating to the schools that have better performance levels overall and historically? I think there's a lot of merit to the concept of merit-based pay. I don't know exactly how that works.
You know, and there's been some other implementations of that, and I think we got enough smart, creative people, we could figure that out. But I give you just one idea and get your thoughts on it. What if we implemented universal school choice? You can go anywhere you want, no questions asked, money follows the child, and we compensate the teachers and the administrators in a school based on retention. You're doing a good job if they're not wanting to get out of your school.
I love that. And maybe we can find some NIL money for the higher performing students as well.
I think we can get creative. I really do. I actually think we could raise private money to fund, to some extent, these bonuses, this variable pay. I think there's an interest in that among the private sector for our citizens to receive a good quality education.
I think the number I've heard is about $7,000 per student in Mississippi, and I think those numbers can go up if the national money and maybe even some of the state money is reallocated.
I totally agree, and we know from audits that in our state we have an excess amount of money going to the back office and not to the classroom, which is a problem. There's a lot of protectionism, as you well know, that exists in the education community, maybe more so than in the political world, honestly. And that's alive and well here. We have 141 districts. We have 82 counties. And there was some talk about consolidating school districts and forcing that down to one per county. Man, that got lots of backlash, so they decided just to study it, which normally doesn't produce a lot of results, but that's kind of where we are on that. I think we could get creative here. I really do, and it's just been a source of frustration. Something else we've tried to get going in Mississippi, restored, is the ballot initiative process. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the background there. We had one. It would allow citizens to place a measure on the ballot through the mechanics as prescribed by the Constitution. Would amend our Constitution. We had such a measure about 5 years ago. It passed, but then one of our mayors sued. It was for medical marijuana program, and sued on the basis that, unfortunately, in our Constitution it says that you have to have a kind of an equally distributed signature count from across 5 congressional districts. Actually had 5 explicit in the Constitution. We ain't got before. So they didn't accommodate, when that amendment was passed, the possibility we may have a change in the number of districts. And so for the last 4 years, at least the House has earnestly tried to restore it. Can't get any traction. Here we are, we don't have one. What do you think about that? Just the ballot initiative in general.
The state of Ohio actually just went through a similar debate 2 years ago. It was issue 1, which the state constitution here in Ohio is in my opinion far too easy to amend, which creates issues if there are regulatory problems in the amendment process. The legislature is kind of hamstrung on being able to make any adjustments. That issue failed. There was a lot of outside money coming into the state to pitch the idea. It did fail. Some confusion with voters around that, but that's exactly how the marijuana initiative passed in Ohio. It was initially an amendment that failed, a horrible amendment, but now we have legalized marijuana in the state of Ohio through a ballot initiative.
Well, and what's been offered that I think there is agreement on is that to change our process from one that would amend the Constitution to one that would allow amendment or creation of statute. That requires amending the Constitution to allow that, of course, and that's what's been discussed. And it hasn't seemed to be a big priority this year, I would argue. I think people, after the attempts the last couple of years, kind of gave up on it and moved on to something else. Of course, now we're focused more on tax reform in the state. That's probably the highest profile issue as well. Mobile sports betting, something else we're trying to get passed. I'm not sure, Rhino, if you saw this. The House passed a measure last night that would increase casino taxes, gaming taxes, as an attempt to get the Senate to act on the mobile sports betting bill. So we got some political gamesmanship. I'm sure you'll dig into that on Friday. Any parting words? Got about 20 seconds left.
Thanks for having me, Jordan. I look forward to talking with everybody in Rhino on Friday as well.
Sounds great. Scott Sands, national radio host. Appreciate him joining us. Coming right back in the Element Wealth